I'm Randy Reid, editor of the Edison Report, and I'm in Washington, D.C. with Jim Brodrick, our 2019 Person of the Year. Jim, welcome.
Thank you, Randy. Glad to be here.
Well, we're very excited to have you as our Person of the Year, and of course, this is really for your body of work. Let's jump right in. You were with kind of a handful of people early on. I'll say Chuck Swoboda, Al Rood, and a few others that really understood the value of LED before the rest of us in the industry. What did you see, and when did you see it?
Okay, so I spent a lot of time talking with people in the industry, and I'd like to add a couple names. George Crawford, Roland Heights from what's now Luma LEDs, Jerry Simmons at Sandia. I talked with this group of people, plus a lot of others, and got their opinions. Some were very positive. Some people were not really supportive. And so you listen and you balance things out in your head. And this would be around 02, 03 that I felt that this was really going to take off. It would take time, and that DOE could plan a program of research and development, deployment, and assist in moving this along faster, also reaching higher performance in the area of efficacy, but also in light quality. And so it was in the early 2000s. We did some evaluations, but mostly it's talking directly to people who are involved in the activity, that have experience in semiconductors, but also lighting. Because if you remember, it was sort of two industries. There were two characters. Lighting maybe a little more conservative and slow, and then the semiconductor people all wore track shoes to the meetings. And it was like, wow, how are we ever going to work with these people? They're too fast, they're too slow. And again, maybe this is something where DOE came in and helped convene the people, get information passed back and forth so that people felt more informed and more at ease.
So what was your role with DOE in 2002?
Oh, at that time, I was a project manager in the area of lighting. And we started, we were funding the traditional lighting technologies, and we also started funding the semiconductors. And I was the one that they gave the semiconductor projects to. We had one OLED and one LED and $500,000. That's where it all started.
You need $500,000?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk about that. What did you do with that $500,000?
Well, we selected two companies, one in OLEDs, which happened to be GE. They were very interested in the organics, and a company called Nitrous, which was purchased fairly soon thereafter by Cree.
Okay.
They were just absorbed in. And this was to get the light quality improved and to get the efficacy improved on everything. If you remember, back about 05, 06, I think Nichia came out with the packaged chip at 20 lumens per watt.
Okay.
And that's about what an incandescent is. And so that's where you start. You're not really all that good, but there is a pathway and a promise that you're going to get a lot better. So that's where we started the program and kept funding and improving.
Okay. So when I was looking a little bit, researching your history, I couldn't find much about you on LinkedIn. You're not on LinkedIn. Why not?
I didn't want people to focus on me, but to focus on the DOE program, and that the program was the key thing, and obviously it is. And so there's very little information about me out in Facebook and LinkedIn and all that. But there was a lot of information about the program. And so one of the things I set up really early in the program is you need to become transparent and you need to communicate. And remember, we put out every year an annual plan of where we were and where we were going for the next 5 years. This helped people feel comfortable that we had a handle on today and the future, but also many companies would take the graphs and that's what they would discuss with their research people.
And with their investors.
Oh, absolutely. I had, I don't know, about one or two a month investment companies would call me, and I'd have to decline. I cannot, give you anything other than sort of the public information, and my personal opinion wasn't really all that important. But we had phone calls coming in from in fact, one of the fun ones was the Motion Picture Academy. Called me and said, "Is this stuff real?" And I said, "Yes, it will happen."
About what year?
Oh, gosh, that was about 04, 05.
Okay.
And they were very interested. And first, they thought it was really great when they do remote filming that they could decrease the amount of generator sets. And the fuel burned. Also, the lights put no heat, IR, onto the subject. And they felt very positive about that. And the third thing, the lights were very light. No pun intended,
right.
But they just didn't weigh a lot compared to these huge, heavy things that they had to bring around.
One of the first times when I came across you was the L Prize. Tell our audience a little bit about that.
The L Prize was actually legislated by Congress, and they gave some parameters in the legislation that they wanted to have this prototype light meet. We added some additional parameters so that the light was functional. Okay. Otherwise, you end up with this laboratory Rube Goldberg thing with wires hanging off the side and stuff. And we didn't want that. We wanted something that could go into the market. And so it's this balance of the amount of time that you allow the contest to stay open, what is the prize money, and what is the degree of difficulty. So there are 5 parameters in the legislation. So it was total lumen output, which was 900, the efficacy 90 lumens per watt, CCT of, I think it's 2700, and CRI greater than 90, and it came out to be 94, and then a lifetime of something like 25,000 hours. And to do one of them, you might be able to do it, or maybe 2 of them. But the problem was you had to have at least all 5 of these in one package, and that became extremely difficult to do. So the L Prize basically was a paradigm shift where you created this lamp, an integral screw-in, 60-watt replacement, and you succeeded. It changed the market because Philips won,
right?
But then all the major competitors came out within about 6 months with their version. Now maybe it wasn't 90, maybe it was 85 lumens per watt. But anyways, everybody stepped it up. They had to, and it changed things around a lot. The light dispersion was very good, very close to an incandescent. If you put it in a lamp. And I tested my wife with it. She couldn't tell the 60-watt from the L Prize. So,
Now, we used to do that with compact fluorescents, and we would put a 26-watt and try to have our spouses, and they could always spot the compact fluorescent.
That's right.
There was no faking it. But
That's
with the LED, you really couldn't when you put a lampshade over it.
That's right. That is true, and it kind of proved that these are going to replace all these incandescents, or people at least have an option of buying an LED. A screw-in integral happened. So they received the $10 million, and they actually had the award done at Congress, inside the building, which was pretty amazing. You don't get in there very easily, and it was a big day for Philips, but also that it changed. It just changed things completely.
Would you say that was one of your greatest accomplishments?
Oh, yes, yeah. Overall, that was a big moment, and people could see it, on the outside, that this actually existed. You could buy them for a period of time, and...
What was the cost?
We're really high. It was like $50 or something. It was very high. And then Philips started, re-engineering. And it was too much, it's too much. And so they did some cost engineering, and then it went down to 25. And of course today, I don't know, what do you pay today? $3, $4?
I think even less. Oh, on Black Friday, I heard they're going for like $1. Now, those are the snow cone, the very poor quality ones.
Yeah.
But a good one, I think, is about $2 or $3.
Yeah, yeah. So just to give you a quick update, the original submitted lamps, the prototypes made by Philips, there is still 200 of them in a test cell at P&L, and they passed around 65,000 hours. So if
How many lamps?
65,000 hours.
But how many lamps?
200.
And they're all still burning?
Yeah.
100%.
No, they're down to 97.
Wow. That's still unbelievable. That's incredible.
Oh, yeah. Oh, this thing goes forever. I mean, it's just astounding. So if you were, let's say, buy a new house and have these type of lamps used in the house, you would never replace a lamp or a light bulb. You would just go beyond. You'd probably have to do something with the house's plumbing first, right? A different day. So
if L Prize was one of your, I guess, most exciting accomplishments, what were some things that were not successful?
L Prize, in that there were 3 elements to L Prize. So that was the first one, the 60-watt integral screw-in.
Right.
Next was supposed to be a par 38. And so this is one of these things you get caught in time because time waits for no one. Sure. And we announced the par 38 contest, and the companies seemed to back off. And I made, I don't know how many phone calls to all the major integral lamp producers in the U.S. and asked them, if they were interested and they wanted to go after it. Well, an interesting little tidbit popped up is we have no staff left.
We being the DOE?
Well, no, we a company.
Okay.
Because we're trying to overhaul and fix our product line, and all our engineers are working on getting, the 40-watt, the 60, the 75, and we can't take them off these jobs because it's sort of like the competitive race is on. Those aren't quite their words. Okay. And so they had staff. The other thing was time. And it ended up that the performance did not coincide with what was happening on the market. And so there is a price point. You get a LED par 38 at a price, and it gives you this performance. And people were, totally happy with a lesser level. And so the companies were a little hesitant to mess with that. And so too much time had passed. So the Par 38 opened up in 2008, and we finally closed it about 2012 because there wasn't any interest.
I did not know that.
Well, see, that's how well it was hidden.
Okay, so.
It was out there. And that was disappointing, but it was just events. Time and events kind of got you. There's a third L Prize, which unfortunately hasn't made it out, and this is for a lamp, better luminaire, and it has different performance parameters, but time, if DOE doesn't get it out, then time's going to eclipse it.
What is it again?
It's a luminaire. It's supposed to put out something like 2,000 lumens. It would be sort of a hallway downlight or a fluorescent tube. It's up to the company, the proposer who makes the prototypes, to figure more what it is. And it's also challenging in the CRI, CCT, expected lifetime, and its efficiency. So that's not, to my knowledge, is not going anywhere. I wish it would. But from doing the first L Prize, you've got to get out there and energize the industry. I don't know how many phone calls I made, and you just keep asking them. We kept bringing it up at Light Fair and other events and promoting it, and it did take. But then the rest.
You did, and you were always out there.
Yeah.
You were always out there speaking. So we're in Washington. We're at the Army-Navy Club in the Pershing room.
That's right. Just a good-looking guy. Yeah.
Exactly. A few blocks from the White House. We always try to keep politics out of the Edison Report, but sometimes they enter in. You worked in 3 different administrations. The Bush administration, the Obama administration, and the Trump administration. Correct. Do you have a favorite?
Actually, things went best for the program under Bush. Hard to believe, maybe. The program advanced. We sort of got our feet on the ground, and they just basically said, fine, here's the $25 million, and you plan it out. And that was really most helpful. Most helpful.
And it was $25 million for solid state only.
Correct. The legislation said that this is only for semiconductor lighting, be it organic or inorganic, and that's all the money was supposed to be spent on. Okay. And so you weren't supposed to mix daylighting or other things into it, because it was meant to be focused. And that's always a challenge at DOE, to keep your program focused on the things that matter, and then they succeed in each challenge. And when we have staff meetings, I told them it's one brick at a time, and every day you put a brick in that wall. Okay. And then eventually that wall is going to be pretty darn big. And so some of my staff meeting was motivational. Okay. And I wanted to try to keep everybody on track and excited and doing things that I felt was right, but moreover they felt was right. Because the best thing to do is not to tell somebody what to do, but ask them what they do, and then agree or change it a little and let them go, and they take off.
See, so this is why Edison Report always referred to you as the Godfather, because you have these great skills for pushing people in the right direction.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, it makes a lot of difference. I mean, I was the only person in Washington for all 20-some years. And so I needed to motivate people. I had staff running from Boston to Portland, and they're all like on the phone or whatever, and you have to keep them on target. And so I talk to some people every day, and some people maybe once a week. But there are about 20 people I called on staff for the South State Lighting Program, and it worked out well. So.
All right. So if it kind of started under the Bush administration with $25 million, then the Obama administration came in. What was that like?
Well, they were all excited about energy efficiency in the big tent, so to put it, and they wanted to do lots and lots of things and get things going on. And so one of the things that I would do is try to shield the team from all these excess requests. Okay. And some of them would get off target, off focus, and it's best if I would try to answer the thing and not engage the true experts that I had. I had people working in semiconductors, electrical engineering, chemical engineering, high energy physics. We actually had you had lighting designers and people that just did aesthetics. Not that was the focus of the program,
right, but still important.
Yeah, it's all part of the package. And I know this from my home. My wife picks lamps totally by aesthetics. Now you wouldn't have heard of that before.
Of course not. All right. So then we moved to the Trump administration, and they're trying to undo some of the regulations.
Yeah. The Obama people came in, and they really wanted to capture as much as they could to regulate it. Now the Trump people are trying to unwind it and have less regulation, which has been a theme all along with the Trump administration. And I guess we chatted earlier. I worked in DOE, and I worked on Solid State Lighting Program, research development, demonstration, and deployment. I did absolutely nothing on regulation.
And because I find that surprising. I think our audience will as well, because I look at the EISA, yeah, and I think my impression was that DOE was kind of on an opposite end with NEMA. And NEMA did not want the legislation. NEMA wanted to let the free market win, mm-hmm, and that sort of thing. Yeah. But you really weren't involved in that.
Not at all. I thought the list was a bit of a burden. I mean, the list was very, very long, and the thing is, it's sort of one administration comes into office, and the wind blows to the west. Then the next one comes in and it blows to the east. And this gets, I think, difficult for the market, for the manufacturers to respond. And it's sort of like, say, get your ski equipment and get on the bus tomorrow at 7. So everybody comes down, gets on the bus, and the bus heads to the beach. Right? I mean, it's like, this is really confusing. And so I did not get involved. Again, I'm following my own rule, keep focused. And so we had lots of things to do in the semiconductor area. And now it's all opening up big time, where you have human health and light. That's a big thing. And DOE's done this before. They've done it before. They spent tens of millions on indoor air quality.
Okay.
Right? So the best way to heat this room is to never bring any outdoor air in and just keep heating the air that's in the room. But then you find that people have difficulties, and there's chemicals that get in the air and stuff. So DOE's done that for 30 years and spent a bundle. And it's sort of like you get the efficiency, but you got to watch the health. So the newer stuff is, the human health, and you can have positive effects on animals, husbandry, plants, all these new topics, connected lighting, there's new semiconductor ideas. All that stuff is right now, and hopefully DOE goes after this, because it's sort of like, I guess if you're in car racing, you now have an engine that can produce 500 horsepower. Now what are you going to do? Right? And I hope they do.
Am I correct that energy saving in lighting has been the biggest energy savings? Lighting is number one.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, without a doubt. The program cumulatively over, I'll say, the past 20 years has spent $500 million. Now, it's a little more now, but $500 million.
Okay.
And we had Navigant Consulting do this demographic calculation of how much got installed. So we got data from NEMA and a lot of other people. So the present day, well, in 2016, the installed base of LED lamps and luminaires saved $2.8 billion in consumers' money. I mean, what a good deal.
Right.
So the consumer, who is a taxpayer, pays into this program, but the consumer now can put some money back in their pocket. And $2.8 billion compared to $500 million is a pretty sweet deal. And
not all government programs work out that way.
Very few, very few that make it. But this one, again, as you asked earlier, I could see this thing was really going to go. And DOE would go around sort of like salt and pepper, and you put a little bit of money here and get something happening, and then you go to another topic and get things happening. And for their own interests, the companies eventually said, well, this is really going to take off. And they took off. And gosh, they have products out now that are really impressive.
So we're late 2019. Is it bigger than you thought it would be?
Oh, of course, of course. I mean, when we started this, so this is a good question. So it's called, in research world, it's called the unknown unknowns. And so you know that you want to get a 200 lumen per watt chip package, and you set some performance parameters, and you go after it. But on the road, you also discover that various reflecting materials actually assist a lot more than you thought. So there is an unknown you didn't even know. Right. And so these are like these perks and bonuses, multipliers, that really add to it. And a lot of things have come along. One of the unknowns now is human health. You can affect people's health with the light. Now, hopefully we do no harm, but the lights can help people feel more positive. I talked to the medical doctor for the space station, and they have the astronauts in the space station sit in rooms where the lighting is controlled at it's like 2,700, 3,500, et cetera, and they take sedatives to sleep because the day is what, 90 minutes? Okay, you're spinning around fast, and it's difficult. Your days get messed up. But by having this light therapy, they've cut the sedatives in half. And yes, and they see this as very positive. We really rather not have the people in the space lab on a lot of dose.
Do you think, regarding human health, we're missing anything by not having the infrared that we used to get from incandescent?
Well, possibly not. But one of the deals here is with the solid-state lighting, you could add it if you wanted, right? And you can vary the spectrum. So the topic now I think is called spectral tuning.
Right.
And you can do all kinds of things. In fact, in growing some of these plants, which of course I won't name, you can enhance the leaf growth with a spectrum. Then you change the spectrum, and it'll start to flower. And so you can sort of drive the situation by spectral tuning. And you possibly there's something they'll discover here in the next couple of years that you can do this with humans.
Jim, tell our audience a little bit about Energy Star. I think that was a program that DOE managed, and then it went to EPA.
All right, Energy Star for solid-state lighting, DOE took off. But one of the things that I liked the solid-state lighting team to do was to move fast. Now, that sounds oxymoronic in the government, but we moved fast. We did all this initial analysis and how you could set up performance tiers and do the Energy Star part. We worked with the industry, the utilities, the big box people, and got this all figured out. Then we had administration change. People from EPA came over to DOE and sent our program to
Which
EPA.
administration was this?
This is the Obama administration.
Okay.
And so we just lost it. They just took it away from us. And
Okay.
we had a great program, and industry backed it, the big box backed it. All the players backed it, but that's political. I mean,
Okay.
you can't stop them from doing that.
All right. So LED technology in late 2019. What do you think about 5 years, 10 years? Do you see any new technology supplanting LED?
Yeah, within some limits. Basically, in the big picture, no. Lasers are coming in cars, and they're headlights. And I mean, oddly enough, the laser faces the driver, and it hits a mirror that has phosphor on it, and the mirror dithers, it vibrates, another way to put it, and then you have this nice columnated beam that they say you can see 1 mile down the road. Well, that's pretty impressive, and you can't quite do that with LEDs. And so here's an attribute, not as efficient as an LED, and it doesn't appear lasers will surpass LEDs. Right. But here's an application where the laser is really doing a bit better, and it could also be in stadium lighting, where you have to throw the light, sort of put it a long ways, and if you have the laser sort of vibrating, then it covers quite a bit of area, but it's not too intense.
So the car light that's vibrating, what about the poor guy that's coming towards the car a mile away?
It'll readjust its aim.
Okay.
And it'll see the headlights coming with a sensor, and it'll click the inboard one to the right. And,
okay.
and so that part can work. So there's one area that may be a new technology. The other one is the organic LEDs, and they're supposed to be coming out in tail lights, and I think the turn signals. And I've seen, this is now a year older, these very impressive geometry of tail lights. And you couldn't do this with 2 or 3 point sources like the old incandescent or put LEDs in there. Because of the geometry, you can't get the light to reflect and reflect through it. The secret with the OLEDs is it's a surface. So the whole surface glows, so the entire tail light is evenly illuminated. And you couldn't do this with LEDs. So there's an attribute you can't get with LEDs, at least at the moment. And the OLEDs have improved. They're sufficiently efficient. They're not as high.
Right.
And they've increased their lifetime. So now it's good for the automobile, and their energy consumption isn't all that much. Now there's almost no weight because it's this thin film on the lens cover you're going to put on the car anyways. So there's a couple things out in the future that look like they're going to happen. Further out, I don't know, but in a physics sense, this is it. Okay. You're not going to have some miracle light appear because of the energy to photons is about as good as you're ever going to get. Yeah.
Any thoughts on Li-Fi?
Well, that may come around. As they try these things. Now, in some applications, of course, if you have security problems, right, this is something that is going to happen. But in a general office, maybe not. The traditional technology will fight back and lower its costs or increase its performance. And so this is going to be a little tough. I don't know how far that'll get.
Okay. Let's speak for a minute about dimming and controls, which to this day, I still don't think dimming and controls have taken off like I thought they would 4 or 5 years ago. Mm-hmm. Do you agree, and why?
All right, so they haven't taken off. So if you have a very efficient source, so this one case, this one person called me years ago, and the lady in her house had something like 45 cans and 74 watts. So she had
45 cans with 75
watts in each.
Okay.
And that got me to thinking, so if she could replace these with something that's really efficient, so there may be 7 watts, and now she's got 45 cans that have 7 watts. If it's on, if it's off, what's the difference? What's the difference? You're going to cut 7 watts to 3? Then you have the cost of control. Then you got somebody to install it. Then when the owner-operator finds out they can't operate it, then they come back. And it's going to be tough because the source is so efficient. You may not want the complexity in the installation headaches.
Staff. Who are some of the people that you work close with in your office? Yeah.
So the South State Lighting team was somewhat dispersed across the U.S., but there's 5 or 6 key people. Joel Chaddick at NETL, National Energy Technology Lab, handled all the solicitations and proposals, and then getting the funding and the contract lined up. A great amount of work there. Morgan Pattison and his wife Lisa were like the science consultants. They both went to Santa Barbara and have degrees in I guess electrical engineering, but it's semiconductor science. We had Karen Marchese at Akoya. Remember, getting the information out and answering lots of questions, because you want lots of questions. Right. She handled all that, light fair, et cetera, et cetera. Then we had SBIR, Small Business Innovative Research. So these are college professors or small companies, and they have these real interesting ideas. Now, some of them are a little crazy, but you got to. So Ed Petro handled hundreds of these people a year, and we had at any one time about $5 million in active SBIR projects, which is a lot to handle, and then do it very well. We had DNR. DNR was a link with utilities, John Rivera, Marcy Sanders, and then we also had, P&L, God, last but not least. So we had Mark Ledbetter and Kelly Gordon and Bob Davis, and these are people who also did some scientific evaluations and stuff, but worked a lot on deployment also. So that's it. That's the top 6 or 8 people.
What was your title when you left?
Program manager.
Okay. And who's your replacement?
Well, they have a new guy, Brian Williams, and I talked to him briefly in Louisville at the IES meeting, and we had a nice conversation. Living within DOE is an art in itself, and then you try to get something done.
Sure.
And so it's a little tough.
Sure. Closing comments?
Well, I hope the future continues to show all this promise and results. I mentioned a few things about human health, and there's more semiconductor chip stuff to do. And I hope DOE keeps going after this stuff, because I don't know who else will. And you can fund it, but you also need to organize it so it makes sense And also when people did things, the program had just under 300 patents that came off our research funding, which is a huge number at DOE. And you knew a couple things. One, the company felt it was a good project and we're spending the time and money to patent it. That's a real compliment. Then we had something like 240 products that had DOE R&D inside and that were being sold. And that's the real test. Often some of these research programs, they do this, do that, and it's just forgotten. Well, most of our stuff isn't forgotten. It's out there, and I hope that continues.
All right. Jim Brodrick, our 2019 Person of the Year. Thank you, Jim.
Thanks,